just when you thought it couldn't get any more interesting. Oops, he's done it again. His Holiness Pope Francis has now not just once, but twice used a very colorful Italian phrase to describe the Lavender Mafia at the Vatican and in Italian seminaries. Also while writing a homosexual seminarian telling him to continue to pursue your holy vocation. Interesting, isn't it? Also, there's a brand new story out about a document that's about to hit, seemingly reducing the supremacy of the chair of St. Peter in the eyes of the rest of the Christian world, the Eastern Orthodox and the Protestants. What's the deal there? Let's jump in right now. By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below. Weren't we just talking about this not even like a week ago? His Holiness Pope Francis was in a closed-door meeting with Italian bishops. Now, the Italian bishops, they were looking for a loophole. You see, Benedict XVI and Francis himself back in 2016 reaffirmed that you just can't allow homosexual men into the seminaries. It would be too much of a temptation for them and probably really bad for the rest of the seminarians and other victims. But nonetheless, the Italians were trying to put a little bit of wordsmithing to His Holiness in this closed-door meeting when he used a very colorful Italian slang derogatory term, faggotry, which essentially translates into faggotry. He was, in essence, telling the Italian bishops, hey guys, just a wee bit too much faggotry going on in the seminaries. Maybe we should scale that faggotry back. What do you say? That caused quite a stir when that got leaked to the public, and homosexual priests came out of the woodworks to express their hurt over hearing the Pope say these things about people just like them. In fact, many thought, oh, poor Francis, he just doesn't know any better. You know, he doesn't speak Italian natively. You know, he grew up in Argentina and speaks Spanish, so maybe he just didn't know what he was saying. Well, turns out he did, because he used it again. This time out of LifeSite News. Headline, Pope Francis again uses faggotry, slur in meeting discussing homosexual men entering the seminaries. Pope Francis reportedly used the term faggotry or faggotry again during a meeting with 160 priests where the pontiff is also discussing the issue of homosexual men entering the seminaries. According to a major Italian news outlet, Francis told the priests present during the closed-door meeting at Salesian Pontifical University this past Tuesday that there is, quote, an air of faggotry at the Vatican. Let that sink in. Have I ever told you about the time that I met Cardinal Coco Palmero in the St. Peter's Square back in November? Yeah, very interesting to say the least. Anyway, the article goes on. During the same meeting, the Pope also returned to the topic of admitting men with homosexual tendencies to the Catholic seminaries. The Vatican press office reported that Francis spoke about the danger of ideologies in the church and reiterated the need to welcome men with homosexual tendencies and accompany them in the church and the prudential indication of the dicastery for the clergy regarding their entry into the seminary, close quote. Do you have any idea what that actually means? Ambiguity much? Anyway, the article does continue. While the statement did not specify which document by the dicastery for the clergy the pontiff was referring to, it appears that Francis was reaffirming the general prohibition of allowing men with homosexual tendencies to enter seminaries. According to an Italian news agency, Francis said that men with homosexual inclination were good guys, but should not enter the seminary with their orientation. So he has seemingly reaffirmed what the church already taught and believed. But why is he saying it again? It's interesting, isn't it? The faggotry going down at the Vatican seems obvious to most of us who have been reporting on all of this. To include His Excellency Archbishop Vigano, who most recently came out with very heavy accusations that Pope Francis, back when he was in Argentina as a young priest, was committing the same sins as the former Cardinal McCarrick, who we all know corrupted generations of seminarians in the United States. So, that's interesting, isn't it? But His Holiness wasn't done with the fraziogini or the faggotry at the Vatican or the seminaries, because he had something else to say to traditionalists just like me and my family, and perhaps you too. In the article by Chris Altieri over at the Catholic World Report, did Francis use the word again? And other Vatican confusion. If you scroll to the bottom, it says, quote, Pope Francis also reportedly had a dig at traditionalists saying they are not okay. Non vanno bene. Warning against ideologies and the dangers of ideologies. What? Do you not like lace and smells and bells, pomp and circumstance, and intentional liturgies? Just asking for a friend. Somehow, traditionalists always seem to get lumped in with the other side, but I wonder which ideologies are okay and not okay. He doesn't seem to like the fraziogini, lavender mafia, and he doesn't like the traditionalist ideologies. What about the synodal way? Is that an okay ideology? Because that seems to be incredibly dangerous for many souls, not to mention the new schism that's developed within the church in Germany and other places. But the hits don't stop even there. Katholisch.de reporting that the Pope wants to downgrade the supremacy of the See of St. Peter? What in the world would he do this for? Oh yeah, it says it is eagerly awaited. On Thursday, the Vatican will publish a document that is intended to make the papacy acceptable to all churches. The text could have far-reaching consequences, and Francis has signaled a major concession. It goes on. On Thursday, the Vatican intends to present a theological document that could fundamentally change the relationship between the Christian churches in the East and West. The text was drawn up by the Pope's ecumenical dicastery under the leadership of the Swiss Cardinal Kurt Koch. The paper is entitled The Bishop of Rome. The subtitle is Primacy and Synodality in Ecumenical Dialogues and Responses to the encyclical Ut Unum Sint. In 1995, the doctrinal letter, the Polish Pope held out the prospect of a different way of exercising the papal office, particularly with regard to the churches of the East. Well, even though JP2 might have been giving a concession to the East, it would seem Francis wants to give even more concessions than that. You might recall how back in the beginning of his pontificate in 2013, he talked about decentralizing authority and power from Rome, giving us the synodal way. That's been a joy of good benefits, don't you think? I mean, more scandal, and even more scandal. Oh, let's not forget the Amazonian Synod with all of its accoutrement, to include the processions with the idols and the Vatican Garden thing. Oh yeah, the hits don't stop coming. But nonetheless, the synodal way is one thing, which seems to suggest a decentralization of power. But then again, remember when he sort of deleted the Vicar of Christ title from the yearbook and went with the Bishop of Rome? How about the Patriarch of the West? Seems to suggest everybody is completely equal, to include the Protestant churches. Very interesting, to say the least. I mean, His Holiness Pope Francis did talk about being the great implementer of Vatican II. Maybe he sees his role as that. But here's what goes through my mind in all of this. If all things are equal, then what is the point to having the primacy of the chair of St. Peter at all? Because I am reminded of the early church, Ignatius of Antioch, writing in about the year 110 AD, talking about the primacy of the see of Peter in Rome, where he was headed to be eaten by lions there. I talk about that story in my documentary film. I'm going to link to it up in the card there. You should check it out. But we live in crazy times, confusing times, where the tyranny of ambiguity rules the day. And when we have that as a problem, we must refocus on Christ himself. Christ is King. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father but through him. And Christ had a plan. He gave the keys to St. Peter the rock in Matthew 16. He didn't just give them to everyone. The guy with the keys is St. Peter. And upon that rock, he will build his church. The church belongs to Christ. It doesn't belong to Peter or any of the bishops or the patriarchs or any Protestant pastor that you could think of. The church belongs to Christ. The bishops, the priests, and the deacons serve in the court of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And let's not kid ourselves. In the end, when the master returns and he finds the chief steward, you know, the guy with the keys, drunk and abusing the other inhabitants of the house, what happens next? I don't know. Let's go to Matthew chapter 24 and read it for ourselves, because I think we're going to find it's very, very interesting. So the patriarch of the West, the Bishop of Rome, no longer the vicar of Christ on earth or the primacy of the chair of St. Peter. No, now we all want unity. We want to do away with the schisms and the divisions and just be one body, one bread, one loaf. Remember what St. Paul talked about? Yeah, I do. But for the sake of unity, are we doing away with the truth? The truth is a person. That person is Jesus Christ, and he died on the cross for the salvation of souls. And I remember what he said in John's gospel about, if you love me, you will obey me. It feels like to ignore truth for the sake of unity makes unity cheap and shallow. It's not the kind of unity I'm looking for. Nope. The truth is a person. Let the chips fall where they may. If we're going to win the battle and bring back the lost souls, to go and seek the one and leave the 99 behind, you can't abandon truth itself. That's a mistake. But we'll find out more of what's in this document. But trust me when I tell you, nobody gets out alive. No one escapes justice. In the end, we all get what we deserve. What do you say? Is this letter going to be a good thing, a bad thing, more of the same? What's coming next? Let me know. Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.